Shalom and welcome to another episode in our series called Israel on Location. Today we're actually walking through Hezekiah's tunnel. Yeah. Among the ruins of the city of David excavations, this tunnel, I think, is the highlight. We walk through it every trip. It's a 1,700-foot tunnel, chiseled out by two teams of rock cutters, according to the inscription that was found towards the end of the tunnel. That inscription, incidentally, is now displayed at the Istanbul Museum in Turkey. Hezekiah, most likely anticipating Sennacherib and the Assyrian army of advancing southward, began this tunnel project. Using two teams of rock cutters, this tunnel was chiseled by hand. Today we can walk through this tunnel and it is still flowing with water. I'm trying to carefully make my way here with a flashlight, and the ceiling is quite low right here. Believe me, I've scratched my head, bumped my head a number of times. Speaking of the height of the tunnel, here it's about 5 feet. Right shortly after the meeting point, where these two teams of rock cutters met, is the lowest at about 4 feet. But then towards the end of the tunnel, the ceiling is about 25 or 30 feet high, and that's because the team that started to the south started too high and had to cut or chisel down to meet the team of rock cutters coming from the spring. We're gonna make our way to the meeting point and talk more about the tunnel there. The water is quite clear as it still flows from the Gihon Spring today. It could very well be that Hezekiah started this project. Some suggest even 3 or 4 years prior to 701 BC, when we do know that Sennacherib and his Assyrian army surrounded Jerusalem. And I'm quoting from Sennacherib's own words, "I surrounded Hezekiah like a bird in a cage." So we're going to make our first turn up here as we get closer to the meeting point. We're coming up to our first turn in the tunnel. Bends right and then a 90-degree left. This is close to where the two teams of rock cutters met. Imagine how difficult it must have been to chisel down here. But it was important to divert the water from the Gihon Spring, as 2 Chronicles 32 tells us. Why should the enemy have all this water? What Hezekiah did is he diverted it to the south to a reservoir pool there. This is the meeting point here. Let me just turn around here once I get a little further. And if you guys can just stay there for a moment.
Yeah, there's a big hole right there. I'll put my...
There's Paul, as we are now standing in the area where the two teams no doubt jump for joy. You can see the chisel marks on the side now going in the opposite direction. So we have made it to the middle point of the tunnel. Stay tuned until we get towards the end, and then we'll conclude there. So we just left the meeting point where the two teams of rock cutters left, and this is the lowest point. I am hunched over so I don't hit my head here.
Right there.
But this too shall pass shortly, because the ceiling, the farther south you go, becomes higher. The engineering of this tunnel is remarkable. How in the world did they meet? Perhaps they followed a natural fissure of some kind. We can't be sure. Further south, the top of the bedrock is not as high above us as it is at the beginning of the tunnel. So maybe they were able to calculate the correct direction from there. We can't be sure. But now the ceiling will be getting higher and higher. We'll continue as we get closer to the end. This is the straightest section of the tunnel. We're about 2/3 of the way, and very soon we'll see the ceiling getting even higher than it is here. The ceiling's about 7 or 8 feet high. It will get about 25 feet high. Water is still below our knees. And it's quite comfortable. Cold at first, but it's quite pleasant here inside Hezekiah's tunnel. We're getting closer to the end here, and you can see how high the ceiling is becoming. It's about 15 feet high here. No worry about bumping our head any longer. Good job. Ceiling is about 25 feet high now. There it is. And pretty soon we'll be able to see the very end of this water tunnel. Isaiah chapter 8 verse 6 tells us about the gently flowing waters of the Siloam. And that really is the case here. The elevation drop from the Gihon Spring to the end of the tunnel is only 2 meters or 6 feet, allowing the water to gently flow into, no doubt, what was once a reservoir of some kind containing the water. And that reservoir most likely turned into the Siloam pool, as we read in John chapter 9. We can now see light at the end of the tunnel. So when this tunnel was cleaned out in the 1880s, they actually found the inscription towards this end. Some archaeologists believe that there was also one at the beginning of the tunnel, and it tells us exactly how they carved this tunnel. And here is the end of the tunnel, and the inscription was hung on the walls right here. There used to be a replica. There's no replica today, but this is where it was chiseled out in 3 pieces, I think, and now displayed in this Istanbul. Here's the end of the tunnel. The water gets a little deeper, and we survived Hezekiah's tunnel. This exits to a small pool, and now we can see it in front of us. This was initially thought to be the Pool of Siloam. This is a Byzantine church that was built here over the pool. And then in 2005, they found a larger pool down further to the south. But now they're revisiting the idea that maybe this was the ritual, ceremonial pool, and the other one was more of a reservoir. So thanks for joining me for this adventurous walk through Hezekiah's tunnel. We've made it. We're now here at, again, the smaller pool, as you see behind me. Maybe this was the ritual pool where Jesus sent the blind man, or maybe it was the larger reservoir pool about 50 or 60 yards to the south. So thanks for hanging out. Thanks for walking with me through the water. And until next time, shalom.